Hey everybody, Blair Nightingale, Stock Talk Thursday, 6 p.m. I was on a webinar with some students earlier today, and I just in passing mentioned Stock Talk Thursday tonight. I'm going to go over something specific in more detail. They said, what's Stock Talk Thursday? Well, Stock Talk Thursday happens right here, as some of you know, but not all of you. Right here at 6 p.m. Facebook, YouTube, you can always find us here. 6 p.m. We're going to go in hot or not. That is the format of this program, Stock Talk. So yes, we're going to talk about stocks, but specifically, unless we have a special episode, which we do something different from time to time, we are going to look at what is hot, something that's hot in the market, something that's not. Maybe it was, it's not anymore. You might want to know. And then I just want to go and look at one news item. What is something newsworthy that you as a trader would want to know that's making things hot and some other things not? There's some big news this weekend that sent a lot of stocks in a direction they had not been going, right? They were hot and now they're not. We're going to look at that. Jeffrey says Stock Talk Thursday is where the fun happens. Hey, I think for us, if you are into trading, this is fun. This is fun, and this is a place where we get to dive in a little bit. Of course, I will share the charts with you on the screen so you can follow along with me. I know that a lot of you will be watching on recording, but if you're here live, you can do what Jeffrey did, and you can ask a question, send in a comment. You could even let us know that it's 90 and rainy in Colorado Springs. If you're in Colorado Springs and you're into that sort of thing, wherever you are, you can let me know, because I love knowing who you are and where you're from. I say this every time. If you're with me every time, you know it. And the reason I say it is because I want to say hi to you, and I want to invite you to be a part of this room as well. Tradeway is a community of tens of thousands of students across the United States who are learning to trade. You know what I heard? I heard a crazy statistic earlier today. Some 25% of people, when polled, their plan for retirement is winning the lottery. Winning the lottery, right? I also heard a statistic from a coach that I follow. He's a very, very wealthy man. And he was interviewing a billionaire today. This is Ed Milet, by the way. You can look up his podcast. It's not a Tradeway podcast, but you can look it up. It's a great podcast. He is a believer, and he was interviewing a billionaire, and this billionaire was talking about one of the trends in our economy. This isn't where we're going with Stock Talk today, but I want you guys to follow this because I'm connecting this, what's important about this community. He's talking about the fact that there is a growing disparity, right? A growing gap between the wealthy and those who are more blue collar, right? That are in specific industries, not just blue collar, but specific industries where the economy is changing, right? The world economy is changing. They said the Industrial Revolution took 100 and some years, right, to really transform us. Now, that's a very broad statement. It happened radically and rapidly, but it happened over time, right? Well, how long has it taken the internet to dramatically change everything, right? How long did it take the iPhone, the smartphone? And COVID came and in some ways changed everything in a year. Why am I saying this tonight? Because, you know, when I think about the community of traders we have, how many people tell me that this is becoming their passion? This is something the Lord led them to do. That's the conviction that they are communicating with me. And I think about the economy. I think about the future of work. I think about a lot of the things that are happening. And a lot of us are having to learn, how am I going to pivot? Now, we all have different reasons. I've been saying this a lot to people. We all have different reasons for making more money, right? You have a why. I have a why. The why is not, I want to make more money. It's never, I want to make more money. Some people are more financially motivated than others, right? And I have no issue with that. It's not about that, though. Right? It's about the relationships that you want to spend more time with, right? It's about the retirement that's coming up in 6 years. It's about the tuition that's going to have to be paid. It's about the credit card debt that's grown. It's about whatever it is to you. And it's not even just about the credit card debt, is it? It's about the peace that you want to feel when it's gone. It's about what you want to build when you don't feel like you have that thing over your head. And I know what that can be like. Okay. So everything is changing, and trading in particular is even taking on a whole new level of focus, a whole new level of attention is the word I'm looking for. As people are really looking to say, I'm looking at this meme stock, this GameStop stuff. It's bringing a lot of attention to the market. It's not how we trade, but it is bringing a lot of attention to the fact that a lot of people are saying, if this is possible, I want to know how to do it too. This has been the millionaire billionaire club game table, if you will, for some time, and those walls are breaking down quickly. Now, that I say because this is a community of people who really have a connection to something that is going to get them to their why. And that's really what this is all about. So when we come on together, this is so much more than just coming on and talking about tickers and numbers and patterns. Of course, we have to do the practical work, and that's the bulk of what we do here at Tradeway. We get into a little bit more of the training side of that on Mondays. We do the Market Monday broadcast, giving you guys an idea what trading really is, some interesting topics around that. And then ultimately saying, hey, if this is something that you're connecting to, then we can take you into the place where you feel like you are a confident and competent trader. Consistency being the key. So that said, go ahead, drop your name in there. Let me know who you are. I want to know who you are. I want to connect with you. Jeffrey says, I went to my first website, nasa.gov, in 1997. I could not imagine Tradeway learning at that time. Yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, I was born in the 80s. I even remember like the idea of having a picture, talking, FaceTiming essentially, right? FaceTiming somebody or doing this. I mean, that was like, whoa, that's in the movies, So things have changed. Things are changing. And this is part of what's on the cutting edge right now for folks to start an online business, is to learn how to trade stocks. So that said, share this with your friends. If you feel like this is what they need to hear, put on your learning shoes, learning cap, I don't know. Because we're going to get into stock talk now. I want to share my screen with you guys. In fact, I'm sitting on a stool here, and I'm going to ditch that because I don't really want that tonight. Let's make sure y'all can still see me. We'll bring this up a little bit. So let me share my screen with you guys so that you can follow along. And we're going to start off tonight. I mentioned the format here is what's hot, what's not, what happened in the news. And oftentimes there's the infinite window. I'm actually going to do this. A lot of times these things are connected. And this week it is more true than normal. So things that are, I like this. Veronica says, hello from Brooklyn, New York. I don't know if we've ever had somebody say anything from Brooklyn, New York. Now, we've got lots of friends out in New York. I miss live events, being able to get out in New York. I have some very good friends who live St. George, I believe it is, right on the tip of Staten Island. They're beautiful people. And I get to visit them a lot, so I get to see friends out in New York. So thank you for saying that. And I love Brooklyn too. Had some good friends live in Brooklyn. What's hot this week? Okay, here's what I want to show you. You can see the screen. Yes. We talk about the S&P 500 on here quite a bit. Okay, and just for a quick recap, the indexes. What's an index? Well, an index in general, right, is sort of it's like a collection that gives us an overview of a broader variety of whatever that thing is. Now, there's a better way to say that, I'm sure, but as far as a stock index goes, it's going to be a place that we can look at, one dial, one number, one metric that gives us information about 500 stocks, right? S&P 500. It's actually 505 stocks, but it's called the S&P 500. And it gives us an idea what's happening over the broader market, but it's represented in one number. Is it up? Is it down? Is it positive? Is it negative? But it's not the only index. We've talked about this. There is an industrial stock index. There's only 30 stocks in that index. That's called the Dow Jones Industrial Index. They are industrial stocks. Now, there's a variety. They're not all the same kind of company, but that's the Dow, sometimes known as the Dow 30, okay? That's the major Dow index. There's also the NASDAQ, okay? The NASDAQ is primarily tech stocks, tech companies, okay? That's on the NASDAQ. The S&P 500 has some industrial stocks. The S&P 500 has some tech stocks, but it's not specialized specifically in those. It's broader. It's a broader index, right? It's a bigger index. The other ones are more specific. They index tech companies and industrial companies. So that's what we need. That's what we mean when we say index. Now, looking at this week, I want to show you guys. Let's go over. I typed in SPX. That would be the S&P 500 index. And overall, this has been a very hot index. Now, we're not going to camp here long. We get to look at this guy quite a bit. But this guy's been not so hot the last few days, okay? This isn't on our not hot list, all right? It's just this is what the S&P is looking like right now. Now, I want to show you the Dow. We just mentioned the Dow, right? So let's make sure we look at that as well. This one also not on our list of not hot tonight, but I could put it on there, right? The Dow Jones is not hot. It is not hot. This has tested this level. I want you guys to see this. If you're not familiar with charting, right? If you haven't joined us many times, you say, what is charting? Well, right now we're looking at a stock chart. And each one of these little blocks, if you will, we call them candlesticks because they have bodies and they have wicks, just like a candlestick. They represent a day of price movement. Now, don't worry about the green and red right now if you don't understand that. You just know that the green is when it moved up and the red is when it moved down. And you probably guessed that. Even if you didn't, that's how it works. Well, it moved up to this price, right? That's about 34,800, okay? The index moved up to that level, and it fell. Then it tried again right here, and then it fell. And then it tried again right here. Same level. Look at that dotted line. Same level, and then it fell. For some of you who've never seen this before, it just shows that there are patterns. There are price activities that repeat. Well, if price activity repeats, could I possibly anticipate another repetition? It doing it again and again and again? And if I could anticipate that, could I make money on that? That's trading. That's what trading is. Well, this hit that line 3 times, couldn't get above it. Not enough buying happening, not enough excitement for this particular stocks in this index, and down it went, right? It fell. Here's what I want to show you, though, because we've had a lot of negative news the last few days, and I'm going to talk about that in our news segment. But we're looking at what's hot. You say, we're looking at what's hot. You keep showing us things that are not. That's what's interesting about this. We saw the Dow fall. We saw the S&P fall. So if people are saying, oh, the markets are down, you can say, oh, yeah, the Dow's down, the S&P's down, but look at this. The NASDAQ's not down, right? Tech stocks were not down today. In fact, the opening price of today, the bottom of the candlestick, was actually the low of the day, right? The open price was the lowest that the NASDAQ got today, and it just moved up from there. Now, there was some buying and selling going on in the afternoon where it moved up and down a bit. But overall, this performed pretty well today. In fact, when I look at the S&P, oh, wrong one. Let's go here. When I look at the SPDR ETFs, which we've talked about on here before, particularly on Market Monday, if you're following along on those, you can always go back and watch the recordings. I say that almost every week just to let people know. You can go back. There's a lot of information here, and we build on it. But you can see that the tech sector was the highest performing sector there. And of course, I said the NASDAQ is tech stocks. So if you looked at an index and you were looking for a trade that particular day, And you saw, well, S&P isn't looking good, but the tech sector seems to be okay, right? Overall, the S&P is down. I don't want to buy stocks that are in the S&P if the whole thing, the momentum of it is moving down. Well, what about an industrial stock? Well, wait a second. We had some questions on CAT today in our programs. Caterpillar, right? It's an industrial stock. It's in the Dow Jones. And so we looked at the Dow. The Dow is down and CAT is way down. Okay. They're moving in tandem in a lot of ways. Remember, the index is just a representation of what those 30 stocks are doing. And so I wouldn't want to trade something in the Dow if the Dow is moving down. But look at this over here. Wait a second. This is moving up, right? The NASDAQ's moving up. So I could go out and go, you know what? I'm just going to narrow my focus for today and look at some stocks that are in the NASDAQ, right? I'm going to look at tech stocks that are in the NASDAQ to see if they're moving up, right? Or tech stocks in the S&P even potentially, right? Because they're moving contrary to the overall momentum. So what was hot today? Tech was hot today. And tech was hot today because it had a nice move up, but it's also had a nice move up when a lot of other things were falling significantly. So let's just go back to the S&P for a minute. We saw some pretty big news yesterday that you're going to want to know as a trader. Now, we're going to share that at the end of the program, but this moved down and created a lot of uncertainty. Earlier in the day, today right here, this candlestick that looks, somebody said earlier, it looks like a sword, right? Just kind of an upside down sword or almost a cross. It's called a doji, and it just means that it was indecisive, right? There was no real decision. It moved up, but it didn't stay there. It moved down, but it didn't stay there either. It's stuck in the middle. Right where it opened is where it ended up at the end of the day. We took a wild ride, but we ended up in the same spot at the end of the day. So this actually was a big red candlestick at one point, right? It had moved down. And when it moves down, it's red. When it comes back up and goes positive, the software turns it green. So you see a green candlestick, but that was pretty negative. Of course, the Dow, as we looked at already, pretty negative. So then you go over and you look at and it's a funny ticker when you're looking for the NASDAQ, it's IXIC, right? Indigo, X-ray, Indigo, Charlie. That's the IXIC. This one's up. This one's up. So this was hot. Now, here's the thing I want you guys to watch. Here's a little bit of insight that I think you guys would want to know. Would you guys want to know something about what I'd expect in this tomorrow, right? We don't guess at Tradeway, right? We don't predict. We don't pretend that we have a crystal ball because we're traders. We just look at the price and what has more likelihood of happening, and then we manage our risk around those likelihoods. That's the skill of trading. Well, remember what I said about the Dow. It tested the same level multiple times, but kept failing, right? Well, look where we are on this. We're right at this level. We hit it here, fell. We managed to get above it a little bit, right? Right there, but it fell. We've hit here, and then it fell, and now we're right back to that line again. I got to brighten my screen a little bit here. So this is kind of an interesting area, okay? This is an all-time high for the NASDAQ. Look at that. If I scroll out, you can see another time that this hit that, okay? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times now. Now let's just go over and change every candlestick from a day to a week. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this blue line because it's kind of making it hard to see. And we can just see that's pretty important, right? Now there's a pattern starting to form here that some of our students will be able to recognize. I'm not necessarily going to go into the pattern here, but there are some things forming here that we want to watch for, okay? Actually encouraging to see where that is going. I think there are some unique risks, of course, to tech in the market right now. We have covered some of that in the past, but today looking pretty hot. Not so bad on the NASDAQ. Troy says 1997 for me too. NASA and Minnesota University Library. Ooh, NASA. Wow. That's Blair, do you ever look at the Russell 2000? Sometimes, yeah, but not very often. For me, I don't. I believe it's more small cap stocks that are in the Russell. And I know some other, Troy says it looks like it's starting to roll a little bit. Almost. Yep. Almost. But I don't typically look at the Russell. So Jeffrey's asking a question. I'm going to pop it up here so everybody knows what I'm talking about. Russell 2000, that's another index, right? Think of the S&P 500, Standard and Poor's 500 companies. This is the Russell 2000. So this is a separate index. Okay, separate index, one that we don't look at very often. But there are other indexes, right? There are other indexes, but these are really the big three, right? These are the ones that are going to really be the big players in our trading. Okay. Now I mentioned what was not hot. Okay, so we're talking about what's hot. What did not do well today? Well, you know what's interesting when you have these spider ETFs, meaning just these. They're almost like indexes for different sectors of the economy, right? That's what I like about the S&P. The S&P breaks up the economy into 11 different areas. So we've talked about this before as well. If I know what the 11 different areas are and which ones are doing well right now, wouldn't it be advantageous for me to try and look for some patterns in the ones that are doing well? Yes, it would. Yes, it would. That can definitely help. Well, one thing I can do is just a quick look over on my list here. Which ones are not doing well? Energy, down. Boom. Financials, down. Now, the sector as a whole, energy has a higher percentage on this ETF. But what was not hot today? Bank stocks. Bank stocks got killed. Let me show you a few. Actually, we're on this. As far as the whole sector goes, this thing's in a pretty decent uptrend, right? That's pretty nice, right? I like to say I'm looking for the pretty patterns. That's a fairly pretty pattern, okay? Let's go over to some of the major players in that, okay? Down to the 50-day. I mean, look at that from here. Kind of rolling for a bit. This is JP Morgan, right? Consolidating and then wham, it just explodes and goes, let's see, am I still? Oh, I was thinking I was on weekly. I'm sorry, guys. November of 2020, $110. Now $165 on this day that's on the far right side. But we've seen some movement from this stock since then. Today, big move down. Big move down. Boom. That one gets killed. Okay. Let's go to this guy. Look at Bank of America. Okay. We were looking at this one earlier. So I've drawn all kinds of lines on this guy. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these for clarity's sake. Also, a very steep trend. Even more so, right? Really nice. Really nice. These financials pull back to the 50-day, the blue line here at most, and then off they go. Today, gaps up in the morning, tries to move, boom, and almost, check this out, almost closes at the low, right? Sometimes I talk about a stock, in fact, I did about the NASDAQ, the open is the low. Well, here, the close was almost the low, right? So that's a big deal. That's a big deal, right? The open and the close. This is pretty close. Not a lot of wick there. That's a big old candlestick. So banks got hit. Let's look at another one. Citigroup. I think Bank of America is going to be, pretty gnarly. But look at this guy too, right? So we wouldn't have wanted to be in bank stocks. And specifically, I had a question this week saying, Blair, if I am trading and I trade certain stocks within the same sector, does that give my account more risk? Am I taking more risk by doing that? And this is an example of how we can see that the answer would be yes, right? Now we have to talk about, well, which stocks specifically are we talking about? because we're not just talking financial stocks here. We're talking banks, in particular banks. But if I go and I say, you know what, let's just use easy numbers. I've got $2,000 and I don't want to put all $2,000 into this trade, right? It could be $5,000, could be $8,000, could be $500, right? Depending on where your trading account is. But you put a percentage into the trade. We don't want to ever put our whole account into a trade. Now, some people say when the numbers are getting smaller, well, Blair, what about how do I make any money if I don't put my $250 or $500 in the trade? That's a separate conversation. But in order to diversify on some level, if I take all my money and put it into the same industry, and then in that industry, they're the same kind of stocks, meaning it's financials, but it's banks, right? Because we go, well, banks are in a good pattern. Financials are in a good pattern, right? Then we actually expose ourselves to days like today, and even I would even say weeks, right? This didn't just start today, but today was a big move. And we'll see where these things go. They haven't necessarily stopped falling yet, right? So we could see this continue to play out, but they're being sold off pretty aggressively. And today was no different. And so if I was in multiple bank stocks thinking, well, I've got some diversification, I have to remember that they're pretty closely tied. Now, the charts don't all look exactly the same, but they're pretty closely tied. And for that reason, I want to be careful with that. So that's a little bit of a trading tip there for everybody. Now, I mentioned a few times, make sure we don't have any questions. Our local news show, the Dow, NASDAQ, and gold every day, but not the S&P. It drives me crazy. I love that. Spoken like a trader, Jeffrey. I mentioned a couple times, there was some big news. Now, that news is actually closely tied to why we're seeing these bank stocks fall, okay? We're seeing some specific things happen. And we talked a lot this week about the Fed, all right? Now, for those of you, I'm just going to say right now, for those of you who are immediately thinking, well, I think maybe I've heard of that somewhere. Maybe I've read that. I'm not really sure. Or I know I have, but I don't know what it is. We actually did a whole episode on the Fed, okay? So you could go back and watch that. But for the sake of today, the Fed is really it's the central bank, right? It's the Federal Reserve. We call them the Fed, right? In short. And they do a minimum of 8 meetings every year. They might do more, but they have 8 scheduled meetings for 2021. And at those meetings, they come together. They're the heads of these major Federal Reserve banks. They come together and they have a meeting on monetary policy, the economy, what they plan to do to regulate and navigate the economic conditions. Okay, these are very smart economists. Some would agree with that statement, some maybe not so much. I know there's some really strong opinions about the Fed out there, but they're certainly better at economics than I am. And they come together and they make decisions, and then they make a statement about the decisions that they've made. They look at the factors, they hear everybody's perspective, and then they make a decision and give a statement. Now, Wall Street is very interested in these statements. Now, this is why this matters for you and me as traders, because I'm going to tell you what we think Wall Street should care about doesn't matter. You say, oh, man, that one kind of stung, Blair. Hey, trust me, that one hurt me a little bit in the beginning too. But the sooner you and I let it go, the sooner we can grow, because they really don't. Wall Street doesn't care about what we think they should care about. They only care about what they actually care about. And the sooner you and I can just say, all right, as far as our trading is concerned, I'm only going to care about the thing they care about, because there's no point in having an opinion of what Wall Street should do when Wall Street isn't going to do it. Right? That doesn't help us as traders. Here at Tradeway, we talk about dancing with the gorilla. The market is the gorilla, right? That's the big money. If you dance with the gorilla, you ought to just let the gorilla lead. You ought to just let the gorilla lead, because if you try to control the dance, it's going to hurt, right? And it's no different in trading. So I want us to know, what are some of the things that Wall Street cares about? Well, I can tell you they do care about this Fed report. And this one in particular was a big deal because they've been looking at inflation. Now, I talked about this on here recently, and I feel like some of us, the eyes in our head might roll back if we start getting into inflation. For some of us, it's so boring. We wouldn't necessarily want to have a stock talk conversation about inflation. But let me tell you this, and I said this on a previous webinar. Have you guys noticed that things are just getting more expensive? We had a great conversation with Ben Mitchell a few weeks ago regarding precious metals, where he talked about this very thing. Who out there has just noticed some things are just getting more expensive? And not only that, they're getting more expensive at a rate that we're not used to. Okay. I moved from Los Angeles in January of this year. And I got to say, I'm thankful for the Holy Spirit's leading in that decision, because I would still be, and granted, if you're in the Southern California area, I love SoCal. God bless you guys. But things that were already expensive have become considerably more expensive in that short of time. And of course, that's true across the country. Things are getting more expensive. That's inflation. And the Fed and the news, they've been saying, oh, this is transitory. Oh, this is not to worry about. And Wall Street's been like, getting a little nervous. And you can tell, right? They're not, while we're staring at the screen here, let me make sure I go and get us back to the S&P. Notice how we've been making these nice, what I call peaks and valleys. We were in a tighter range here, but same thing. Peaks and valleys, up and down. Well, we're still kind of doing it, but we're really going sideways. Well, a big part of that, right? Big part of that is that they're getting nervous, right? They're getting a little nervous. Now, I'm not saying we should all be afraid, but they are getting more cautious. It's their job, and it's our job as traders to manage risk. You say, I thought we were here to make profit. Aren't we here to make money? We are, but the way we do that is by managing risk well. We don't get ahead chasing profit. We get ahead managing risk. And that's what Wall Street does. So when they see things getting more expensive, inflationary numbers are coming out, right? They report this data. It's growing, it's growing, it's growing. All eyes were on the Fed this week to say, hey, we know it's your guys' job to handle inflation. If things are getting out of hand with inflation, you are the ones who have the tools to make sure that that is moving at a healthy pace. And if it's not moving at a healthy pace, you guys have a tool called interest rates to help slow down inflation, right? We really don't need to understand a whole lot more than that right now. But that is one thing that slows down inflation, right? They use that to control how fast the economy heats up. Well, because of COVID, we've had interest rates at near zero now for quite a while. And the market is saying, I want to watch the Fed and see if they say that they're going to raise the interest rates to combat inflation. Because so far, all they've been saying is sort of head in the sand, like, no, this is not a problem. Inflation's not a problem. Meanwhile, you and I are going, things seem to be getting more expensive. This doesn't really add up. And here at Tradeway, we've been watching the markets, and they've been going, and we've been saying, this doesn't really add up. Well, the Fed admitted a little bit of that yesterday, right? They said, it is actually higher than we expected it to be. But, quote, it's still transitory, meaning we still expect it to kind of work itself out. But they know, right? The Fed knows that what they say is being scrutinized by big money investors on Wall Street, and they don't want to spook the market. So I don't necessarily think they're in a position where they can be as forthright, and maybe rightfully so, as they would maybe want to be, or certainly we would like them to be, okay? Because they said, yeah, it's still transitory, even though it's higher than we thought. That spooked the market. They didn't expect them to admit that. I didn't expect them to admit that. And they also said the interest rate hikes that we had previously said were going to be somewhere out in 2024, right? That's actually going to be in 2023. Good chance that we have two of them now in 2023. Say 2023, Blair. that's a little ways away still. That's true, but for the market, that to them was, wait a second, you said 2024. Now you say 2023, you're going to start raising interest rates, which means you actually are more concerned about inflation than we thought, right? So they're reading into that. And what happened? They tanked the market today. Now it's resilient. It hit that green line you can see there, that second one up from the bottom, and the market found some support there. The question is that going to continue to be support through the rest of not just the week, but through the rest of the month? We don't know yet. We have to watch and see, but it's still very much in the air. And bank stocks took a big hit because bank stocks are highly affected by the potential of interest rates going up. Now, you might have been like me and you thought, well, wait a second. If interest rates go up, can't banks charge more money and thus make more money? Yes, they can. But there are some adverse effects for them as well. It gets a little bit more in depth at that point, but it's definitely sort of a short-term snap reaction where people thought, you know what, I'm selling the bank stocks. They've been driving those stocks pretty high, and so they're seeing a sell-off. We could see it pass quickly. We don't know, but it's certainly been a big hit for the major bank stocks. Anyway, the Fed being the big story. So what does this mean for you and I from here? If inflation continues to be a problem, if it continues to get higher, if we continue to see, as Jeffrey said, lumber, gold, silver, he said they've been coming off the highs this week. If we continue to see that moving up, then we'll see the Fed be pressured to be more aggressive, or even just as aggressive as they are finally admitting that they may need to be. If that's the case, then we could see some more market volatility. My opinion, and this is just Blair's opinion, we don't guess, gamble, or go for it here at Tradeway. There's no crystal balls, but I don't feel like we've totally digested what is happening. So I'm looking for some key indicators in the market here that some of you guys I know were just on our webinar right before here. We've got our Insider Plus, which is one of our membership programs. We talked about some key levels I think you need to watch in the morning because I'm not decided on this. But the NASDAQ being hot, bank stocks definitely not. The Fed being the big news this week, like I said, 8 times a year. So this was a big one. This is a big one. And we've got to digest and see how the market is going to take this in. That said, thank you everybody for being on here. We're coming on just about 40 minutes. Troy says, big boys move the money to tech stocks. And, you know, tech has been doing well already. Tech has been doing well. In fact, there's some, we don't necessarily have time for this right now, but there's some interesting things happening with bonds. The bond market that is all a part of this as well. It's very interesting to me. I think it's very interesting. I want to get you guys information that you feel like helps you understand the markets better, because when you understand, you can feel confident. And when you are confident, then you can be active, because you can't get anything out of trading if you're not active with it. So that is what I hope to deliver to you today. I want to say for our friends out there who are in the Dallas area, okay, in the Dallas area, we are actually doing a live event, okay? We've got a live event coming up. This is actually the first one that we've done since COVID. So I'm going to pop the link in the comments for you. You can always reach out to me on Facebook, right? You can always reach out on YouTube. I'm checking those comments, okay? I've been in there several times this week. Our social media team is in there every day. Let me know. If you are interested, you're saying, Blair, I'm not in a membership. I don't know how to do that. Reach out to me on Facebook. You can always email us, support@tradeway.com, okay? And I'd be happy to work with you. All you have to do is just reach out. I can only put so much in the chat here. Reach out, let me know. We can get you started in a training program. We help new people get into this skill set all the time. That is what we do. If you're interested in joining our live event, I'm popping the link into the comments right now. This is in the Dallas area. We're going to start doing some more live events, but if you're in the Dallas area, we're going to do a stock and real estate event coming up. First time we've ever done anything like this. We looked at, we spoke to the owner of Pips Path to Property on Monday. So if you're interested in real estate and how we approach that, that's a great option for you as well. Let's see. Veronica says, could you just review how to navigate the screen, how you pulled up the list of indices on the top right of your screen, and how you check stocks? So that's going to come down to having your charting software set up, Veronica. Okay, so there's several different ways that we do that at Tradeway. And that's one of the things that we help you do, right? Right when you're getting started, we say, okay, here's the tools you need for your stock trading business, charting being one of them. And then, of course, you want to add watch lists. We need watch lists. There are over 8,000 publicly traded companies, plus ETFs and funds and all that kind of stuff. So we help you narrow them down into some lists and look at stocks and tickers that are really the growth stocks that you want to be focused in on. And then practically speaking to your question, of course, how do I actually just set that up? Again, that's something we do in our program. So if you're wanting to move forward in something like that, again, you can always reach me, support@tradeway.com, just straight into Blair Nightingale, and I would be happy to work with you guys. Send that on over to me. Thank you guys so much for being on here tonight. I had fun tonight. I really did. I think Jeffrey said Stock Talk Thursday is where the fun is. And I hope that you guys felt that too. I enjoy this stuff. I enjoy looking at the markets and understanding why things are working the way they are, not just for knowing's sake, but because that is what helps us be decisive, as I said. Thanks so much for being on here with me. Again, if you need anything, support@tradeway.com to Blair Nightingale, and I will get that. Team will send it over to me, can take care of you. That said, watch for the markets in the morning, and we'll see you guys on Monday night, 6 p.m. Market Monday. We're back every week, and I'll see you guys at that time.